Welcome to the Quick Stop F1 podcast. My name is Nyasha and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that on this freezing Monday evening in the UK. I hope it's warmer wherever you are. But I am here with two special guests. We're going to kick it. We're going to chat about all things F1. First and foremost, I've got the lovely Amelia from Amelia. How's it doing? How are you doing? And how's it going?
I'm good, and it's going good. There we go.
Wonderful. What a double dose of delightfulness that was. Much appreciated. And also, all the way from South Africa, I've got the host of one of my favorite Twitter spaces. I don't know where they've gone to. We'll discuss that later. But big up, Naz. How you doing?
Hey, hi. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for asking. I had to think about that. You know, when it's just like you're in your mind and it's just like, hello, darkness, my old friend.
We love a good Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, everyone who doesn't, right? But no, more importantly, how are you? You okay?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm kind of in a new phase of my life since the last time we spoke. Yeah, I've now left uni, so I'm now an employed woman.
Nice. How is employed life treating you?
Listen, I mean, I'm really happy that today I had an early, because normally I work kind of really long hours, but today was a bit of an early day. So I'm quite glad that happened today.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad for you. And I hope that this day carries on being good in this podcast. I hope it doesn't all just go downhill after this, basically. But look, it's not about me. It's not about any of my special guests. It's about you guys at home. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give us a like and a subscribe. And if you're listening on any podcast platform, make sure to rate us. We're trying to get to 500 Spotify ratings. So if you listen to us on Spotify, just give us a little 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, give us a review. It all helps. Much appreciated. And I guess while I'm here plugging stuff, if you like Quick Stop F1 stuff, feel free to go on our website and you can buy all the merch on there. All proceeds go to me. So yeah, I'm joking. It goes to buying more stuff for the podcast. I'm not balling out. Please believe. It is winter. There is rice at home. No takeaways. But anyway, I digress. So we have had a pretty dry news week. I'm not going to lie, but there was some news last week. Someone has unfortunately or finally, depending on where you sit on the fence, lost their race seat for 2023. And that person is Nick Latifi. And here's where I insert crying music, clown music, whichever one you want. So, Amelia, I'll come to you first. I guess the legend of Nick Latifi, he's not been renewed for next year. I guess in the nearly 3 seasons he's been in the sport now, how would you describe his time in the sport?
I guess the thing with Latifi is he's been in a Williams, and he's been in a Williams that's not performed this year. And I mean, everyone talks about Latifi like he's not a great driver, but you can never assess someone, I don't think, from their performance on what has been consistently the worst or near worst car on the grid. But I think for people to still be able to say, yeah, he's done badly, even when he was matching George at points, I think that proves that, yeah, you're not going to do better anywhere else. If people can judge your performance in a Williams that's at the back of the grid and say, yeah, he's not up to much, you're really, really not up to much.
Yeah, you've really got to stand out in the worst car for your team to not renew your contract, and it would seem not have anyone else lined up. Naz, do you have any, fond memories of Nick at all? Any?
I mean, I suppose the only fun memory of his doesn't even necessarily involve him, but involves kind of the radio message that George made. I think it was in Hungary last year, where he said, well, you can sacrifice my race to give, Nikki the points, or, and so, I mean, I suppose that's really the only thing I remember about kind of him. But I think also for me, the death knell, if you will, really was Monza, and how somebody who had been in the car for like an afternoon and a half and then arrived on Sunday and was like, oh yeah, here's me. Obviously he's had previous what's the word I'm looking for, he's had previous practice experience, so it's not a completely brand new car, but like that somebody can show up and just completely outclass you like that. After that I was just like, he has to go, because I think before I'd kind of be like, maybe if they can't find anybody else, maybe he should stay, but after that I was kind of like, no bestie, you actually have to go, sorry.
Man, you two are so polite. This guy's ass. What the fuck? No. You guys are so nice.
The De Vries thing is funny though, because I feel like maybe it's just me, but everyone I see has an agenda against De Vries. Like, I don't mind the fella, but I feel like a lot of people were like, it would be funny if he did badly. And then he did that well in that Williams. And I mean, Alex has had his own issues, but Alex has performed them. So like Nick to get ninth when a lot of people don't think he's good enough for that seat anyway really proves that Latifi is not good enough for that seat.
Oh yeah.
No. Absolutely. And look, I guess this goes on to a conversation about pay drivers, right? So Nick Latifi is what some may call or may want, I guess, as the last of a dying breed of someone who can pay their way into the sport and maybe not be considered one of the top 20 drivers in the world, right? They're not there purely on merit. Now, look, technically every F1 driver in some way or another is a pay driver, right? It's a ridiculously expensive sport. It's an even more inaccessible sport. So, obviously that is, money is always going to be a factor. But I guess with Nick Latifi gone, I guess Lance Stroll has his whole own team now. So, whether that is his team, whether we like it or not, his dad owns it. So he's going nowhere. I guess Zhou brings Chinese sponsorship money, but I guess he's not directly paid into that. I can't really think of anyone else at the moment on the grid who is paying to be there in the way that Latifi essentially saying, look, I've got money in the same way Mazepin was last season. I've got money for you to help prop your team up. In return, I will race one of your cars. With the new regulations that have come in, with cost cap and I guess just, with, teams, I guess being able to be in a position to spend less and make more money. I guess, Naz, is this the end of the pay driver, or I guess, will there always be space for someone like that in the sport?
I think there probably is space for somebody like that, but I think that Nick Latifi falls at the bottom of that totem pole, maybe a little bit above like a Mazepin, for example, Mazepin, however you say that. Because I think ultimately, I don't think people necessarily have as much of an issue with a pay driver as you will if they're kind of performing decently, they're kind of arriving at the job, they're doing the things that they need to do. But I think it becomes then a big issue when it clearly looks like you're taking somebody else's spot. Like there is somebody, I think, who's quote unquote more deserving. And the only reason why they're not there is because their last name, like their dad doesn't own Safina, right? Was not bringing in the Lavazza money. So I think it might be, but I think because of how money hungry, I suppose, Formula One is, I do think there always will be someone like Latifi, maybe not quite as bad as Latifi, but they're always going to be around.
Yeah, true. And I guess, Amelia, looking at what is left out there, it looks like the crumbs of F1 drivers out there that a few teams are looking at. I think we've got a situation where Williams are looking for someone, Alpine are looking for someone, and obviously Haas are looking for someone, and we'll get to that in a bit. But I guess if you're Williams, I guess do you think that Williams? It looks like they're going to opt for a driver, obviously, who is capable of driving, and it will look like an increase. I guess if they go with Nick De Vries, what are your thoughts on Nick and his capability? I guess let's say to match Alex Albon, I guess, who's going to be the benchmark for any driver who goes into that team. What are your thoughts on that?
I think De Vries for me is the obvious choice, because the one thing everyone forgets is Latifi was second in Formula 2 when De Vries won it. So De Vries, as much as we can't say all Formula 2 cars are equal, De Vries has proven himself over Latifi anyway. So you can make an argument that because he was a Mercedes driver then, he's always deserved that seat, and he certainly should be in line for it first. But even when you think about pay drivers, I think Alpine have got probably the best choice, because they are the best team out of the three that are looking for someone. Haas at least can look at maybe the Ferrari Academy drivers, if there are any. But Williams has their Academy, and who do you have in that? You have Nassani, who is the definition of the bad pay driver on the F2 grid at the moment, literally isn't even allowed to race at that. You have Sargent, who is so entertaining to me because he was a pay driver, and then you have Trump associations that mean he has no money anymore. Oh. And then...
I did not know that. Wait, rewind that.
You want me to go back on this one?
Sorry. Because I've heard people say they want to put Logan Sargent at it, and I've seen little quips and stuff. But could you just explain for those who don't know what you mean by that?
I haven't written the Logan Sargent biography, but what I do know, he has familial connections to known associates of Trump who were fined lots and lots of money by the American government because, and I think it was, don't quote me on this, something to do with their involvement in international espionage in countries like Venezuela. And they were I think it was his uncle or his uncle-in-law or something, and they were the people funding his seats, which is why when people like Oscar went up to F2, even though Logan, I think, only lost the F3 championship in the last race in 2020 and probably on talent should have gone up to F2, didn't, and almost didn't even get an F3 seat for a while. So he's an interesting one because he certainly doesn't have the money anymore to do it. But then Williams have no one in their academy that's maybe capable because of that.
Well. I did not know that. That is incredible.
It's always a fun story.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. The thing is, where else do Williams go if it's not Nick? And I guess, there really isn't much out there. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not.
Honestly, I mean, I'm not really out there like that. But sometimes when you're swiping on Tinder and it's just, nothing's exciting on it, right?
That's the whole thing.
You just you know what? Sometimes you go I'm gonna put my phone down. I need to go outside. Okay, I'm gonna find someone because it's not in my phone. So I guess with Williams, let's have a conversation about Williams. Williams got bought out. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, the Williams family sold the company to Darlington, who kind of promised that the need for pay drivers would stop, and they're going to put money into the car and into the team, and but it doesn't look like they've gone forward. In fact, I could probably argue relatively to everyone else. In they've got incredible straight line speed. So at places like Monza and Spa, they look great. I do worry about them at tracks where they can't use that, and they look very far away when that's the case. Where do Williams really go from here? I guess that's are they just basically now? Are they just consigned to being the worst team on the grid, and I guess they're there to help people like George and people like Alex rejuvenate careers, create careers, almost be like a feeder team to the rest of the grid, or do you see like a positive future for them?
I mean, this is going to sound really controversial, but I'm going to go with it. But I think part of the reason why Williams is still a thing is definitely because of kind of their heritage within Formula One. And I don't think that outside of that, there really is any reason for them to be taken seriously as a team.
That's Sir Frank you're talking about. His life's work.
No, but that's what I'm
saying. Well,
sorry.
Okay, now we get to the good stuff.
I mean, I think, so currently, right outside of Sir Frank, I mean, when he died, I was also like, ooh, R.I.P. bestie. But I mean, outside of that, you're okay.
I'm not okay. But yes, I'm not okay. But I know for sure R.I.P. bestie, definitely, to Sir Frank.
Yeah, it's sad, but
like, like rest in peace. So, I mean, I think they probably, I think their best bet, honestly, is to try and approximate what AlphaTauri is to Red Bull, which is effectively just like a feeder team, right? A place where you get ready, finishing touches in Formula One, and then you go on to kind of the big team, right? And so I think that their value there, right, if they can get it together, would be really good. But I have heard that apparently Jos Capito is looking to move away from that Williams relationship and go elsewhere. So that might not be the dream that Toto is looking for. But I think, they're a nice heritage team, but it's also like, how many times do you have to fail for us to say, actually, just can the whole thing? It's pack your bags.
Get out. I hear it. I guess Amelia, I think when they sold the team, a big part of that was that they were going to keep the Williams name and they were going to stay in some way independent. But, they look like a team ripe for someone to buy and just move forward with, to be honest. And I guess, whilst we're on the subject, how... with the way F1 is moving at the moment, and look, this is all just conjecture. This is all us, I guess, just looking into the future and seeing what is down the road for a team like Williams. But I guess an F1 grid without the Williams name on it, is that a loss to F1? I guess in the same way that, look, there are people that champion. Look, there are people that champion for Spa to be there every year, even though it serves up absolute dross year after year after year. The worst rate after Monaco. And people want Monaco on the calendar. That's an even better example, right?
Oh, that needs to go. I'm so glad that was renewed.
Oh my God.
5 whole years. Oh, that made me so angry. Because they literally gassed us up and said, okay, like they haven't gotten the contract together. It's the end. Another track is going to come in. And then when I saw the breaking news, I was like, wait, you lied. Mate, somebody lied.
Not only is there no South Africa, but there's extra Monaco. Like, it's a little racist, I'm not going to lie. No, I'm joking. But I guess, Amelia, given the, I guess the importance F1 places on heritage, is it a bad thing if there's not a Williams car on the grid, I guess?
I think the thing for me is Williams has to have value. Like you say Monaco, but Monaco Formula E races are great because the Formula E cars fit around Monaco. And then even if it isn't the best Formula E race, the perks of Monaco, like the glamour and stuff, are fine because you can still get a good race out of it. Williams don't have to be the next Red Bull, the next Mercedes to be valuable to the grid, but they have to prove that they can move forward. And I think they are kind of stuck in a bad spot, maybe because of when that money came in and then fixing the changes, repaying debts or whatever, versus building a new car. Like, how much time did they have to adapt to 2022? If they can, and obviously they've had to battle with losing George, who is like an excellent driver and was, sorry, man, I'm going off.
That's okay.
And was crucial to them. And then, obviously having to find someone to replace Latifi, but if they can get the recent, like another young driver like Alex, I feel like that is something to build off. They've just got to build off of it. If they can become someone like AlphaTauri that maybe has an occasional bad year but can finish halfway through the championship, and you can't discount them for points, I don't think there's anything wrong with them being there because they're a valuable team, but you've got to actually prove that value to some extent.
Very true, considering when we're talking about value and, Toto Wolff coming out and saying, an F1 team like Andretti who want to come in as their own team would need like $1 billion in money and assets for them to be of value to the rest of the grid and for them to be able to come in and be competitive and add value. So you look at that, and then you look at, the situation Williams win. It does look like a bit of a lonely road, but I mean, I think it's nice that they're wanting to stay independent, but at the same time, interesting to see, and hopefully they can, hopefully year on year, we've got pretty stable regulations now until 2026. So who knows, like, they can start to, creep up and go closer, but it doesn't. Big man ting, it's not looking good, bruv. So let's move on. My next topic, which I had for you guys, was which one we do first? Let's do Haas first, because it looks like a bit of a shit show over there, bro. I'm not gonna lie, yeah. Haas and Mick Schumacher are going through the messiest breakup in the world. Do you know when you see, they're going through like a Facebook breakup where you'll see like people in their mid-30s to 40s just subbing each other on their Facebook statuses like, this prick doesn't clean the dishes well. I'd fucking clean the dishes if someone learned how to cook. And we can see them growing apart. Mick's coming out. Mick's having to get Uncle Ross Brawn to come out and fight for him and say Mick deserves to stay. He's doing well. Gunther Steiner's coming out and saying, Mick's not even spoken to me. And then he's talking about signing Nico Hülkenberg. Just don't know why. And so forth. I guess let's have an open and an honest discussion about Mickey Blue Eyes Mick Schumacher. Naz, I'm going to put a simple question to you. Does Mick Schumacher deserve to keep his F1 seat?
This is actually the one thing where I was like in two minds, and I still am in two minds, to be honest, because I think on the one hand, right, for me, this year feels like Mick's rookie year. I don't count last year because they weren't developing the car at all. They basically said, listen, we're looking at 2022. And he literally had like an ass teammate. Like there's nothing. It was, I mean, trying to look good next to Mazepin was not hard. Like, I mean, I don't want, I've never driven an F1 car before, but I feel like if I put my mind to it enough and I like practice like that, I too could, could go up against him.
I don't have a license, and I think I could like map it.
You guys sound like Tandy for real right now. Oh my God. This is what all girls are like. It's incredible.
So, I mean, so that's kind of the issue where his previous year doesn't really count. But at the same time, and I was kind of listening to some other podcasts, and we're talking about how Mick generally does the thing where he needs a little bit more time to get into it. And so we've seen like in his F2 and his F3 career that really in the second year, he started to get it right. Now, that might work in the kind of lower Formula Series, but in Formula One, and especially with the kind of team that Haas is, where they're more kind of impactful in the beginning of the year, and then towards the end of the year, as more teams are developing, they kind of fall off. That then doesn't work for him, right? And like, I don't think that he's completely been outclassed by Kevin Magnussen. I think he's shown glimpses of like he kind of looks like he knows what he's doing. But I think that maybe his place might be at another team, maybe even like a Williams, where people are more kind of happy to sit through you making mistakes because we already know that this is kind of an ass team. So I would like for him to go to Williams, which is a stretch, and I don't think it's going to happen. But like, does he deserve his seat? I mean, I guess no. Like, it's not working. Like, I root him completely, and I understand where he's coming from. But I think kind of the confluence of the type of driver that he is and the direction that Haas is going just isn't working, and it's going to frustrate everyone. And so it's probably best for them to split ways. But I also want Mick to have a seat somewhere because I like him. He's a very sweet boy. He's also very cute. So
yeah, there it is. I was waiting for it. Thank you, Naz. Amelia. I guess thoughts. I guess would it be a shame if? I guess we're talking about new teams coming in and only being 20 places. I guess is Mick a casualty of there only being 20 seats in F1 essentially?
For me, like, I'm on the same boat. Mick's cute. I want him on the seat. He's smiley, but like, I think when you talk about Mick having a seat, Haas need Mick to be good more than Mick need Haas to be good, even if Mick is doing worse than Haas. Which is why, like, as I said, like a team like Williams would work for him because they're prepared to, like, this is going to sound bad, but I see them as more of a serious team. Like, even if they don't perform as well, I feel like they are okay sitting through it and raising it. Whereas Haas is just like, they're going to get angry at him. But, I mean, Mick has Callum to look at, which I think is great. Like, I'm a Callum Ilott fangirl, and the way he's doing it.
I love him. Shame, he's great.
Callum's great.
Also
but
very cute.
Yes. But like, this isn't what we need from it. Like,
no, this is the insight I brought you two on here for. Jesus. No, look, you're not wrong.
All of that 2020 F2 year are really cute.
Okay.
No, but like, Mick needs a good seat, but everyone, and it is because of his name, but he is a great driver. But Mick could go to Indy, and Indy would want him, and he would find a seat. He hasn't done bad enough that a team like Williams, as we were saying, that needs a driver, would discount him. If Williams thought they could have Mick, they would go, yeah, let's put him on the list, because I don't think he's done bad enough that you rule him out constantly, especially as we're saying, like, you take into account the Mick Germany needs another year and the last year he had, you have to discount. So even Haas might say at the end of the day, are you taking that risk on Hulkenberg when you already know what he can do? When if you give Mick another year, is he going to shine? Like, what would have happened if AlphaTauri let go of Tsunoda in the first year? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a driver who was also had issues with the team in the way he was treated, had a lot of mistakes, but now is a very solid driver because someone gave him the time of day. And I don't want Mick to get lost in that kind of, like, the Haas constantly moving train of chaos thing.
Yeah.
When he has proven himself in the past, he just needs an environment to do it in.
Yeah, look, I think that relationship's gone to pot. If I'm going to be honest, let me be honest for a second. I think Gunther Steiner gets away with a lot because he's the star of Drive to Survive.
100%.
And I'm not going to lie, any other guy, his ass would be on the line right now. Yeah.
Imagine if Toto was saying stuff like that about Lewis or George every week.
It's just
that man would be unemployed.
100%. It's incredible. And it's such a good point because for me, I think, what the league's coming out of the team, I think one of the head engineer, chief team engineer, I can't remember his name now, but I saw a quote from him that said, Mick's great, but he concentrates too much on his teammates. They didn't like how he spoke on the radio after during Austria spin race. I think he was asking to be let past Kevin Magnussen when he was quicker than Kevin Magnussen. He was asking to be let past, right? And the team weren't having it. And I just think between Gunther and the team, that's just not how to run a Formula One team. And I think Gunther's first for the press and limelight sometimes overtake what I can see as a team boss who I think has shown a serious allergicness to developing a car through a season, to be honest.
He thinks he's Christian Horner and he's just not.
He is a little Christian Horner. Like,
which is quite a thing to be.
Yeah, right? Like, you are Naz, Lidl is a supermarket in the UK which specializes in, like, cheaper products, but it's like they make, like, the same product. So you'll have, like, Walker's crisps, and they'll have, like,
a really long analogy.
They'll have Christian's crisps, but for, like, 50p cheaper, basically. Anyway, it's a cheaper version. The long story
so
short.
Almost like a Poundland, like that would make sense.
Yes, Poundland. Sorry, man, but I don't know, cost of living right now, you go in Poundland, not a pound. So
no longer just a pound.
No,
it's literally not. You go into Poundland and things are a $5.
Yeah, no, it's false advertising from the jump. Don't get brought in. So yeah, I've never seen a Haas car improve over the course of the season. They always start off here and then end off here, and I just think, yeah, it's not an environment for a young driver to go into. And maybe they do need an experienced driver. But when they had two experienced drivers, in Kevin Magnussen and Roman
Grosjean, they hated one another.
Right, that was awful.
And they were crashing the whole time. They were quite crashing.
And they're both great drivers. They just never got the chance to show it. So if you have a driver like Roman or Kevin who can't stand up to like Steiner, what is Mick Schumacher with the weight of the world on his shoulders and all that expectation going to do? That's why maybe he would work alongside Alex, who has done there, been there, done that.
Either way. I think, Williams would be a place for Mick. My own view on it is, I mean, I'm the same as you, to be honest. Like, I think Mick's having I'm not going to lie, beginning of the season, when he kept crashing that car, I was like, brother, this team cannot afford for you to keep crashing this car. Like, you're going to bankrupt your team. But he's got that under control now. I think his performances are on par, if not better, than Kevin Magnussen. And, he's starting to show his form. And it's a shame that I did worry when contract talks didn't happen, like at the beginning of the season. And if a driver's contract is coming up for renewal the next year and we start to get into silly season, then it's like, well, where's this guy going to go? And I think he's a victim of having been in the Ferrari driver academy. He left the Ferrari driver academy to try and secure a new role, a new drive. That doesn't seem to have worked. So his only options really are Haas or bust, and I don't see. I feel like, but the thing is, the alternatives are what are getting me right now, right? So the alternatives to Mick are Antonio Giovinazzi,
who is ass,
who
has already basically proven that he's not better than Mick,
and Nico Hülkenberg. I think
who also has already proved he's not better than Mick.
So any decision, and this is what I don't get with Haas, I don't understand. Surely, I mean, this is what I think gets me. Are things that toxic between Mick and Haas that the only viable alternatives are two drivers who, in all fairness, have had their time in F1, we know their ceiling, would, I guess, needs some acclimatization back to the cars, although Hülkenberg's a reserve driver, so he's doing sim work and so on. But I just, I mean, is that the state? I mean, either way, I guess I'll ask you this question. Are Giovinazzi or Hülkenberg better options on purely on driving and pace than Mick Schumacher?
I don't think so. I think kind of what has happened is we've seen a fallout of the relationship between Haas and kind of Mick's management. And even if, which I think is probably true, that Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg are not better drivers than Mick, I think just because that situation has just become untenable. When, you're like dating somebody and it's not going well. And so you're like, I'd rather go back to the devil I know, because like this isn't working. I hate this man, but there's another man that I hate less. And so, we'll go there and see what happens.
I hear it. I've ate a lot off of that. Trust me.
You two are right.
No,
I've done that before.
No, I'm not all right at all. I'm not in a good place.
Reevaluate your priorities. This is not relatable at all. Maybe I'm too young to get this.
No, it's definitely because you are a child. Okay?
Yeah,
and when you get older, life will show you things. And as somebody who isn't even that much older than you, it is hard out there. The dating pool is awful. The men are even worse.
Dating pool's got piss in it.
Throw them away. Away.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I think part of the reason really is I don't think so much about kind of the talent that Mick has compared to Giovinazzi or Hülkenberg, but simply because that relationship is just no longer working. And so if it's simply not working, it doesn't make sense to continue to be in something that doesn't work. And I think it might, I don't know. It's not, no, Mick needs to go somewhere else. It's not working. They're awful.
Wow. Prayers up for Mick. That's all I've got to say.
Also, Mick, my DMs are open. I can comfort you if that's what you're into.
Unbelievable. So absolutely unbelievable. Looky, getting me off of where I was going. Right. Speaking of a man with nowhere to go, let's talk about Daniel Ricciardo.
Right.
I will put the same question to you about Daniel Ricciardo. And I think this is a different conversation in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with you, Amelia. Does Daniel Ricciardo deserve to stay in F1?
Okay, I'm going to start this one off with a story. And this is a story that not many people know. But basically, the reason I am probably here on this podcast, the very first article I wrote was in mid-2020, just as the season was starting. And someone basically tweeted that they thought Daniel Ricciardo had peaked. And this was even before he started, had his first race with McLaren, before 2020 even started. And I was like, what the hell? You can't say that. He's Daniel Ricciardo. So I sat down and I was like, I'm going to write all the reasons this isn't true. And then I got about halfway through doing it and I was like, hold on a minute, it kind of is true. But then my basic point at the end of that article, and this was June 2020, was he hasn't peaked, but he needs to do well in McLaren, because if he doesn't, then he has peaked. And that is still what I stand by today. And I think that was the best call of my life. And he hasn't done well in McLaren. So Monza was his peak.
God. Thank God for Monza, because honestly, it's looking a bit tight for my man still. Naz?
I think he is a consequence of a vibes kind of guy. I don't know if you guys goes through life and they're just I'm vibing, feeling good today, I'm just going through life. And whilst that's great, it makes him likable and you're oh, he's so cute, he's quirky, as the girls say. I think that the better, or I don't know how to phrase this, but kind of the harder it got in terms of the car that he was getting at McLaren, the more it just showed that he needed a little bit more than just good vibes. I think that last year we were probably willing to kind of forgive him for the underperforming a little bit. We were kind of well, he's just coming into the team. He did come in last year, right? Yeah. So he was just coming in, and apparently Carlos Sainz had said the car's particularly hard to drive, and then he had that Monza thing, and so we were oh no, things are looking up. And then we come to this year, new car, and a completely different philosophy of the type of car that you have, and still your teammate is wiping the floor with you. And I think part of it is that he did come into Lando's team, and so that team had already developed around Lando. But I think it also just shows how much the value of knowing the technical abilities of the car and knowing how to give feedback so that your engineers know kind of how to prep the car for you, not for you to kind of just go and say, well, today is a great day to be me, and kind of just move like that. So I think a lot of the reason why he's suffering is because of that. And also I think he's just old.
He's younger than me. What the fuck's going on here?
Oh my God.
Let me live.
Nyasha, you are an old man bestie, but we love you.
Okay, well, thanks guys. No matter what happens, keep it on the black stuff. We'll see you next week. The fuck?
That was uncalled for.
No, but
people just go on, do you know what I mean? That.
No, wait, Nyasha, you're pushing 40.
No, Ricardo's how much Ricardo? 30?
Isn't he 35?
He's 32.
Oh, no, he's 33.
Oh, I thought he was 35. My bad.
Even so.
No, because if you said you're older than Ricardo, because in my head I was Ricardo's 35. You said I'm older than him, so I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, that is pushing 40 if you're older than 35.
Okay, yeah.
I was
okay. That is technically pushing 40, but yeah.
So, I mean, yes, I think Ricardo, I feel bad for him, kind of, but also some people like to say that he ran away from a fight at Red Bull. I don't necessarily think so. I think that was a completely different scenario, and I don't think we can attribute that to him running away from a fight. But he just hasn't kicked on in a good way, as once he left Red Bull, it just the pots weren't happening, as the girls like to say in South Africa.
The what wasn't happening?
The pots were not cooking,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you. I'm gonna use that when I come over to try and impress girls. I'm just going to say that randomly.
Please don't do that. Don't
are the pots happening? Huh?
Mm-mm.
Huh?
Cannot.
First flight back to London. Amelia. So look, we're in a world. I never envisaged this happening. Alpine look like they're doing everything possible not to sign Daniel Ricciardo. They're making it very clear. They're having a whole test day with a bunch of other drivers who I don't think are as quick as Daniel Ricciardo, but I guess that's that. I don't think Williams could afford him. I don't know if Daniel Ricciardo would want to go to Williams either, to be honest. And then I don't think Haas is the right fit either. I guess what I'll say to you is this. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was listening to you.
Thank you. It's nice to have people listening to me intently on this podcast. No one ever really listens to me. Well, I guess what I'll ask is this. Is how bad these last 2 years have gone. I guess if you're a team principal looking at spending around, I guess, $10 to $15 million a year on a driver, and I guess you're looking at obviously what Daniel has done, but what has happened recently, and with a car that's not to his liking. I guess I'll ask the question: even if Daniel Ricciardo does take a year off, and opportunities pop up next year, do you see a way back into the sport for Daniel Ricciardo, or are we seeing the sad end to what it was, a really good F1 career? But I guess, are we seeing the end of Daniel Ricciardo now?
This is the Hulkenbergization of Daniel Ricciardo, because he will be around for another 10 years. But is that man going to have a seat? That man is going to be rumored to have every single seat from now on. Is he going to get any of them? Probably not. I feel like the thing with Daniel, and I mean, when Daniel was officially announced, I saw so many Ricciardo fans are saying like, oh, he said he only wants F1. He doesn't want anywhere else. So if he takes a year out, he takes a year out. I'm like, that's brave to think your driver can take a year out, not do anything, and then come back. Like, yeah, if you go to IndyCar, you are probably going to be in IndyCar for a long time, but you're gonna have a good run in Indy. If you do endurance, you might never get out, but you're gonna make bank doing it. Like, if he has a year out, he's just gonna be sitting on the sidelines waiting for a seat. And is that seat gonna come just because, like, if he'd retired or taken a year out after he left Red Bull, or even after he left Renault, then he hadn't proved he wasn't good enough. But I feel like, especially 2022, he hasn't proven that he can do much in what has been at times a good car. Like, he hasn't done enough to prove that if you give him a new car, he'll do good, which is probably why Alpine don't want him, even though they've had him before and they know that he can provide solid performances for them.
Yeah, it's just it's a strange one. It's a strange one with Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, I love Daniel Ricciardo. Like, I think a lot of us, I don't want to put things on you guys, but a lot of people thought that him going to McLaren seemed like a good move at the time, right? Before a tire had even rolled on the 2020 season, he signed that deal. McLaren were a podium getting team. Ricciardo is a podium getting guy. He got a few at Renault, and it looked like, okay, this is a step up. He can take that team. He can be a good guide for Norris. We can now see where Norris is up. Yes, although seeing as he was pretty much equal to Sainz over those 2 years, I guess there was already a bar there, but I guess we all assumed at the time Daniel Ricciardo was a more fancied driver than Carlos Sainz. So it's crazy how the tables turn. So it just seems it's a shame how it's all come to an end. I think it's sad watching a sports person in decline, right? And especially because in a sport so devoid of personality, let's take away the fact that he said that the news bums him out, okay? And
that's like the one thing that has like done more to damage that man's career than any driver.
Let me tell you, because of those things that he said, whenever something bad happens to him, I'm just like, well, you know,
it's so funny to me. I'll never get over laughing about it.
Yeah,
if you were a little bit more informed, this might not have been your path, but here you are. Even though there's absolutely no correlation in my mind, I absolutely did cause correlation symbiosis.
No, as you should. And you know, it's just a shame. You know, it's just like, I know I watch football, watching footballers, you know, after they like, you know, like watching Messi at PSG or like, you know, whatever, Ronaldo, but he's a prick, so I don't want to talk about him. But like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's sad. And F1, I guess, you know, we're talking about F1 without Williams, we're talking about an F1 without Mick or whatever, but an F1 without Daniel Ricciardo is a bit of a sadder place, right? And, you know, because who's going to come in wearing chaps and cowboy hats at Texas now, you know?
Losing Ricciardo, but
can we talk about that very quickly?
3 American races is like the biggest, worst thing Formula One has ever had happen.
Yeah, no, he's going to mark it.
I will say that whole, his love of Texas specifically, as a white man who does not come from the US and is Australian, to me is very weird. Like, I'm not trying to insinuate anything about the kind of person that he is, but like, we know. But are you?
I mean, it sounds like you're using my platform to do just that.
I'm definitely. No, I think it's weird, right? Like I don't know how to say this without sounding like a complete dickhead. So I'm
just say anyway.
Just lean into it, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's very weird, and especially I think I wouldn't really have an issue with it if he kind of just liked American culture, like in general. But he seems to really particularly enjoy kind of like Texas and like the Cowboys thing, and it's like his shtick, and he quite enjoys it. And for me as a black person, I'm definitely like,
you're saying he likes too much old white shit. He's flying too close to the old white shit, son.
He is. Right. It's a little bit like you're doing a lot.
Like when George had the little cowboy.
That's literally what I was going to say, but I was like,
exactly.
Can I say that?
Oh no, we can say that.
Podcast. No, it is giving that. It's giving George's sheriff helmet.
Yeah, that was
right, because like
it's fun
what connection do you have to the US that makes you like Texas specifically?
Do you know what it is?
Like none of the other states, like it's just Texas where you're like, you see, these are my people. And I mean, and I'm sure the people in Texas are fantastic. Please, people from Texas, do not come for me. I'm sure you're great, most of you, you know, except for the ones who are not pro-choice. But I've slipped in a political statement.
No, that's fine. No, it's bound to happen. I'm surprised it took this long.
That's the point, because some of them aren't pro-choice.
So, you know, like, it's weird. But, you know, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's fine. No, thank you. Like, you know, look, I think with Daniel Ricciardo, I'm willing to shoot him some bail, right? And I'm going to say Daniel Ricciardo learn everything he loves off the TV, right? Like, because he's not reading the news, he's not looking at current affairs. So everything that he's got about Texas is like literal movies. That's why he loves Talladega Nights. That's probably the only reason he was like, pretty much Talladega Nights, and it was like, NASCAR.
Yeah, you're saying this bad stuff happens in Texas. The man doesn't watch the news. He
doesn't have a clue. He has got no clue. So everything he likes is like just That's why he's walking in with cowboys and like that's all he knows. That's all he knows. Cowboys and NASCAR.
Just vibes.
Just vibes. Bless him. Even if
that's why you see the comparison between him and Lando, because with Lando, I think if you were like an inch more self-aware, everyone would like you so much more.
100% hates him, can't stand him.
Whoa.
Didn't he write like didn't he write a piece in a very conservative newspaper?
Yeah, Lando's getting them Telegraph pounds. What do you mean?
I just remembered I had a really big comment for that, and I forgot.
Not like something about him that's, and I think also for me the reason why I don't like Lando is he does this thing where, you know how like kindness can sometimes be, or goofiness or silliness can sometimes just like be like shady, like there's an undercurrent. And I feel like he plays us as though we don't see the undercurrent. Like, I think half the things that he does, he absolutely knows he's going to get a rise out of people. I think he absolutely knows that like this is going to ruffle some feathers, and he's willing to do the whole like, oh, I'm just being nice, oh, I'm just being jokey, without kind of realizing that we all can clock. Because I think there's been enough people that have kind of said like, you're being kind of weird with the things that you do, maybe reassess. That I mean, maybe perhaps he surrounds himself with people who like are his like his, you know, they like write his dick, so you know they're just,
yeah. Great image. Thank you.
Might need to PG that. So he might just, you know, surround himself with people who just I can't think of the proper words, that's why I use that one.
Yeah, like yes men.
Sycophants, that was the word I wanted. Yes, yeah. So, you know, just has a whole bunch of sycophants who like won't call him out and shit. And so here we are having to deal with him and his rubbish.
See, I would agree he's doing it knowingly, but I'm not sure he's that clever.
Yeah.
Like, I think I can be fond of him, but I'm like, does this man have a big enough brain to be self-aware, let alone to think he's more self-aware than the rest of us?
No, 100%. McLaren is two fucking idiots who have no idea they're fucking idiots. In the same
but if they weren't, they'd be the most terrible people in the planet.
If those two could just be, wait, let me say now, the first 6 to 8 months of that relationship last year is some of the most, you know, McLaren, they got Daniel Ricciardo in, they said, oh my God, we're going to get this PR money rolling in. These two are going to be bouncing off each other like friggin', I don't even know. Who's even a good fucking partnership? Who got? I can't even. Key and Paul. I don't know.
Maybe Pinky and the Brain, but like
Pinky
the brain is kind of smart.
Yeah,
and neither of them are
smart. Yeah,
so
no, yeah, they're both Pinky. Essentially, they thought it was going to be Pinky and the Brain, but they're both Pinky. And it just turned into the most cringe-worth, like back to back of horrible videos, horrible content. They obviously don't like each other. Lando's saying, like, you know, do you think I give a damn about that bitch? I don't. I don't give a fuck. He was happy to put him in the dirt. So, I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy that Ricciardo's going to get out. I love all the Ricciardo fans. Like, oh my God, McLaren's so toxic. Get down. And it's just like, I mean, it is, yeah, but your driver's not doing well, bro. Like, I'm just saying. So, it's a shame. Look, it'll be interesting to see where Daniel Ricciardo goes, for sure, because, yeah, a year out, and then, you know, talks of him being Mercedes reserve driver. I think that's coming out of Daniel's camp more than Mercedes camp, to be honest. And to be honest, I don't know why I would want a reserve driver in my car that couldn't even tune his own car.
Mercedes because have Charles Leclerc as their reserve, and like they're not going to choose a guy who had a year out who drove for 2 years with their engines anyway.
Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, like Daniel, we can't even get our sim correct.
Exactly. That's what I'm like, how would that work? Like when he's going in to like, you know, do some work. What does that conversation look like, and how does it benefit?
Daniel, we need you to drive.
He's not got any marketing power when you have Lewis and George in your team.
Yeah.
So what does he bring?
We don't need him. Honestly, we don't need him. I don't know, look, we'll see. There was one more thing I wanted to discuss before we get into Women in Motorsport Month. I had a conversation last week, and I was like, you know what, I need to bring this onto my own platform because now I can speak freely on it. So, and big up my brother Cameron, by the way. Love you. Cameron had me on his platform last week to discuss, I don't know if any of you have seen it, Christian Horner's interview on the F1 podcast, which I can't remember the name of now. Beyond the Grid. Yeah, like Christian Horner did another Beyond the Grid podcast, which was, to put it lightly, an absolute bag of shit of lies. He was lying his ass off. I've never, it was like listening to North Korean state propaganda. I was like, have I watched the same shit as you? Are you just lying to me? Some of the provable lies that Christian Horner said. He said that Michael Massey only Michael Massey only made one mistake, and that was not allowing the two other cars past at the restart. Christian Horner said Lewis Hamilton has never praised Max or given Max any kind of nice words. Christian Horner.
Wait, can I just interject very quickly on that? Lewis Hamilton will throw a compliment at anybody, right? Like, stop lying.
No,
I could be in a car with Lewis Hamilton and he could compliment my driver.
Yeah, 100%. There were other provable lies as well. I guess beyond that, right? You know, we all know Christian. I want to talk about Christian. How Christian Horner uses the media, right, to kind of spin narratives and stuff. Is that good for the sport? I guess Christian Horner does a lot of media, and he helps, you know, drive interest in the sport. He's a very public-facing figure. I'm sure Red Bull are happy about that because it helps sell their team brand and so forth. But I guess. Is there a point where I guess we have a situation where Red Bull they pleaded for engine freezes because they would never be able to get their engines out on time, but then, you know, Honda is still making their engines and they're going to get an engine partner anyway, so what's the big fucking deal? They were able to basically manipulate the race director into having a cozy direct relationship with them, and that ended up in whatever it ended up in. And, you know, the media narrative after Silverstone, and, you know, and I guess what they kind of created and what that entailed. I guess open conversation on Christian Horner. Is Christian Horner good for? I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to ask a question, which is a leading question, but I guess, you know what are your guys' thoughts on Christian Horner?
So
full stop.
I think Formula One media, farm, whatever, needs to decide what direction they want Formula One to take. If we are going to go down the direction of being inflammatory and allowing ourselves to be, by ourselves, I mean FOM, to kind of be manipulated and for the worst types of people to make their way within Formula One and have those kind of ideas more centralized and more accepted, they then need to go down that route, but then you can't then have we race as one, because then quite clearly there's a conflict, right? Am I a fan of Christian Horner? No. I mean, I watched the early season of Drive to Survive and I thought it was kind of like, I thought he was likable. Like, you know, I was like, oh, well, you know, he's there. He always has something to say. I guess it's kind of cute, whatever. However, I think I don't know how to say this. I'm probably going to get canceled, but like, here we are. I think that he embodies his like white madness showed up for me at Silverstone. And particularly the way in which he used basically like incited people to go after Lewis Hamilton, right? Yeah. And then when he was called out on that, then said to all of us, you know, well, Max also got abused, right? As though somehow racial abuse is the same as like somebody calling Max a prick, which he is, just FYI. Just as an aside.
Oh man, the little Max bots are gonna love you. Let me tell you that right now. Amelia, your thoughts on Christian Horner?
Okay, this is the place to start off Christian Horner, so I'm gonna do that. And to me, Christian Horner in the media is like, this is where I'm gonna be the political F1 Amelia. It's like a Boris Johnson resignation speech. It's like a late in his term Boris Johnson PMQs, where no matter how obviously untrue the shit he says is, there is always some racist out there that will believe it.
Perfect analogy. Perfect analogy. And do you know what it is, right? For me, I think I appreciate Christian Horner's tenacity, Christian Horner's absolute dog-like spirit to get things done.
Yeah, in F1, he is a genius. He is an F1 genius. He's just not a very nice person.
No, and I think what I worry about is in a sport where, you know, where fans try to call stuff out and they get called aggressive, or if fans, I think gaslighting fans about Abu Dhabi is wrong. Like, I just think that's wrong. No matter what we think of the result, or no matter what you think of the repercussions, it is not okay for a team principal to come out and just lie about what happened, and to kind of push this narrative that, oh, you know, Michael Massey, if he just let the other two cars, everything would have been fine. Like, that's fundamentally wrong. The safety car had to go around for another lap if that was going to happen. You can't let two cars through and then duck, and that's wrong. So, you know, I just think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous. And I think the fact that he has such a mouthpiece is what scares me. Like, you know, whenever he wants, he's got a microphone to kind of to say what he wants. And I don't think he needs to at this point in time. Like, you know, his team are winning comfortably. They've done an incredible job this season. But for him to just, I guess, have an interview where he's just going on the offensive and again trying to paint Lewis as this monster who hates Max, and Max is this poor little boy who just wants Lewis to say nice things about him, and Michael Massey just this poor little guy who just made one little mistake. And I just find it incredibly wrong to do. So so I guess let's go on to the women in motorsport stuff, because I guess I've got you.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, and I think did this start inaugurally last year?
No, this started in 2020. But
2020.
Yeah, okay. But my platform grows. So
okay, nice.
The movement grows.
No, of course. So, I guess describe for the listeners and watchers, what is Women in Motorsports Month? Why does it happen? Why are you pushing it? And I guess just give us some more information.
Okay. So I started Women in Motorsport Month in 2020, and I didn't have that much of a platform. But basically, I think it's odd because I grew up in an environment where sexism wasn't, it's something you see in the media, but I never really had that around me. So when I joined Formula One in 2020, I feel like, especially because that was such a flashpoint year for social change in the sport, I saw it to a level I'd never seen it, and I was really quite shocked by it in 2020. And that year I was basically like, I want something that we can do about this and we can focus on it, because it was that kind of year when I think everyone really wanted to push similar things. So I started it in 2020. And I think the one thing that made me carry on was because Women in Motorsport Month is every November. It was literally a few days after that the infamous Mazepin incident happened. And then I was like, this is not going to go away anytime soon. So last year we hosted it again, and then it's this November as well. And it's basically, I want it to be about celebrating the achievements of women in motorsport, because I feel like no matter how much you know about motorsport, there's always women in motorsport that are really famous that you don't see as much, that have done like really, really incredible things for the sport that you don't hear about. But I also want to commemorate, and something that we've seen a lot of this year, the ongoing misogyny within Formula One. And that obviously doesn't just affect women, but it is a serious problem when we do need to tackle it. And I wanted a kind of opportunity where we can focus our efforts on it and we can talk about it at a specific time, so we can come together more as a community.
Nice. It's an incredible idea, and I guess anything that we can do to help push that is really good. I guess, Naz, it feels like maybe your internet's being quite misogynistic towards you, but on a serious level, I know in your spaces, these misogynies, some of the things that are kind of touched upon, and I guess, someone who is within the F1 Twitter kind of space, and and just watching F1 itself, I guess from your point of view, just how bad is the misogyny that you kind of see within the sport?
I think part of it is kind of just a reflection of society, right? That as a society we haven't moved forward to see women as full members of society that deserve as much respect as their male counterparts, and just kind of just people in general. So I think especially with Formula One, because it is kind of such a male dominated space, that for a very long time has been allowed to fester, right? So I mean, I think this year was probably the first time, and I suppose also this year is the first time that we've had people coming to the tracks. We've had a lot more people coming to the tracks, a lot more people who probably look different than traditional motorsport fans. And I think we're kind of seeing kind of I don't want to say an attack, but a really kind of concerted effort to show, or to other specific kind of women and people who are not white heterosexual men, or at least present themselves as such. And so I think part of that is really, anytime you try and make any kind of progress in society, there's always going to be pushback. And I think that the space for pushback is particularly kind of ripe, for lack of a better word, because of the traditional base that is kind of men or fans in Formula One. I also don't think that Formula One itself has done enough to kind of to move that conversation in the right direction. And I think part of this is, I like to think that sometimes Formula One does this thing where whatever the kind of the cool and the sexy thing is, they kind of will throw into their messaging. And once kind of everything kind of starts to fizzle and it's no longer kind of as cool.
The pots are done.
Yeah, once the pots are done, they kind of just say, okay, well, we're chucking this out. And I don't think that they're doing enough to make their tracks inclusive for everybody. I think it doesn't work to have a social media campaign where you're saying, like, block somebody on Instagram or on Twitter if they say something abusive to you, or kind of saying an empty statement like, we as Formula One are against kind of abuse of people at the stadium, but you're not doing anything to protect those people that are experiencing that abuse, right? So and I mean, there's a spectrum of things that you could do, like providing safe spaces for people that are particularly vulnerable at certain tracks, and where certain fan bases tend to show their asses a lot more. So, again, gonna need to lock my account. So I think, I mean, going back to what you asked, it happens because it's a reflection of society, and I think also because of the way that Formula One is. I don't think that Formula One is powerless to stop it. I think that there are very real things that they can do to make it better, but I think they choose not to. And I think part of that, at the end of the day, Formula One is a business. They're not doing this kind of for their health. They're trying to make money, and people who are giving them money are also the same people that they're kind of trying to correct, if you will, or trying to condemn. And so then it becomes a little bit awkward when you effectively are trying to look as though you're moving in the right direction, but refusing to kind of stop your bag, if you will, right? And so kind of the trade-offs that they're willing to make, we then see in them giving us empty kind of signals and gestures where we must report people on the social media. I'm sorry, but that's a real bugbear of mine. I think
no, that's honestly that was really insulting. Like, for me as well, one of the reasons I didn't mention that I started on the next 12 months was like I was 16 when I joined F1 Twitter, and I'm 18 now. Like, that's 2 formative years of your life, and I spent a lot of that having like very misogynistic views in these spaces, and the community did like to me. The community really helped, because that obviously like really affects you. I didn't get any support from anyone in F1. No one at F1 told me, block the person. And when they did, that didn't work. They just continued to support an environment where those people were uplifted, where the people that were doing that were uplifted. And they've never done anything since. Like, I'm sorry, if blocking someone worked, I would have been a lot happier a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, considering some of the stuff that we've got as well, we've blocked people, and new accounts just come up. I guess, Amelia, I'm not gonna lie, one of the things, I'll be really honest actually, and say that one of your tweets from when I first joined F1 Twitter actually changed how I think about things a lot.
I've got a lot of tweets. You've got to narrow that down.
Oh, well, I'm about to. I think if I can remember it. But you know what the thing is? One thing I didn't realize is that probably, no, let's not say more than football. In a different way to football, F1 is really kind of tied to, I guess, stan culture, I guess.
Yeah.
And that is in football, right? But I guess it's definitely done a lot more proportionally by women.
Yeah, definitely.
F1 in F1, right, than it is in F1 Twitter. I don't think there is really
that's not a controversial statement. Yeah,
there's much difference between them, but yeah, I guess it's first time I've definitely seen it on that level. And as someone new coming into it, I definitely was like, what the fuck is this shit? Then why are we talking about what drivers look like? Why are we not talking about the sport, whatever? But I had to check myself about that, right? And I think you tweeted something like, just something along the lines of like, these people are fans as much as anyone else is a fan, right? And we shouldn't be looking down on fans. Fans want to like someone for the way they look, then that's fine. If fans want to like fucking mechanical shit, then whatever, that's fine. You do your thing over there. So and that was learning point. And I guess in that way, I think that's why once I started to be in the space more and like follow more people, whatever, I think that's what makes it actually an incredible space, like the variety in the sport, and that comes from girls. But I guess what could be done, I guess, with I guess if as a girl who maybe like wanting to get into F1, as a girl who's kind of looking from the sidelines, I guess what can be done, I guess, if you were F1, right, or if you were people in power in social media sites or whatever, like what could be done to, I guess, protect people from misogynistic abuse and so forth?
It is like definitely a culture thing, and I think the thing we're talking about, like that very specific, it's hard to describe, but the very specific style of stan that is like more associated with women, that can always detract it, because then you have like the DTS narrative, which I don't even think is a valuable insult in F1 anymore.
I think that's an awful insult.
Yeah, but I feel like even that has lost its value now because it's just used as an insult. But I feel like it's about uplifting that kind of community. Like there are a lot of people on F1 that are in a similar like type of stan kind of thing who got into F1 in alternative communities. Like so many of us got into Drive to Survive or in that era from like YouTubers. Like I'll always say I got into F1 from Will N8. Like, that's a whole different like space, but we're used to being in spaces where we are more protected of stans because the people that we look up to like have those values too. So I feel like when you get teams like Aston Martin and Mercedes who are the best at capturing that, and fans feel more comfortable and more safe around those fans. Like it's not a coincidence that although you might get attacked for being a Lewis stan, like very few Lewis stans are going to do that kind of thing. Like I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, where I feel more comfortable being friends talking to Team LH than anywhere else, because I think it reflects your values. But then I think as a team you have to reflect that as well. Like I know so many stans in that variety too that were really hurt by Aston Martin's partnership with Aramco, because they're effectively Saudi Arabia and there are very misogynistic and homophobic laws in that country. And it's like you really just have to have those values and prove that you have those values, and then fans feel safer and they feel like they can believe and trust the people around them in a way.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Naz,
how do we improve? I feel like I'm going to sound so defeatist, but I think ultimately, I don't know that there is a way to improve kind of at least the safety or making Formula One feel more inclusive without it directly affecting Formula One's pocket.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said,
100%.
It continues to thrive because they're quite happy to take their money.
Yeah.
Even though you probably would see that if they were to choose to be kind of more intentional about what their approach to bigots is, you might find that there's actually a bigger margin of people who are willing to support them. But then I suppose then we need to get into kind of the actual ethics of Formula One itself and whether or not.
Well, there's not much there to get at, really, is there? Fuck off.
So I suppose on a kind of smaller level, it really kind of just starts with, if you have privilege, whether you're a man or whether you're white or whatever, and you see these things, to kind of like call them out, right? And to not, which I suppose is a hard thing, because sometimes these people are people that you hold affection for because they're your friends or your family. And I suppose part of it is also just reflecting on the kind of person you want to be, and whether or not that behavior that you see or that you exhibit is the kind of behavior that you would want to come back to you, right? And if it's not, then, and I mean, it doesn't even need to be like where you're trying to dunk on somebody's head and come up with like a read to serve them. But I think even if it's kind of just like a DM, to somebody, and say, have you maybe thought about how this might make this person feel shitty, right? And I think part of it, and it's not that, we necessarily have to be nice to everyone, but I think kind of the most valuable lesson that I've learned is to look at how I want to be treated in life, and whether or not the way that I act reflects that, right? So the way that I treat people, is that if I wasn't me, would I be treated in that same way? And I suppose even on F1 Twitter, so we can talk about like the toxicity of F1 Twitter, but I think fundamentally it starts with like ourselves, and like you honestly reflecting on, what kind of person am I? Would I like me if I saw me across the road and saw how I was acting? And if you really have an honest conversation with yourself and the answer to that is no, then maybe like just stop being a dick.
There you go. Stop being a fucking dick.
Honestly, it's a valuable lesson. I say this is I'll say this as someone that's like obviously like going through like very formative years in my life on Twitter, but the people that have like I like to think that I don't go out of my way to be an asshole, but the people that have messaged me, the people that I look up to like almost as older siblings on F1 Twitter, they have done the most for me, because when you get a lot of abuse, you start hitting back at it, and then sometimes it can feel like everyone is like that when they're just making a comment. But the people that will go out of their way and send a DM and say, don't do that, and here's why, that's the most valuable people for me, because then I've learned to stop being like angry at everything and assuming everyone is angry at me, and then you just create a better space for yourself to exist in.
Yeah. And what I would say is as well that going back to the stand culture thing is like that runs the space. Like all of the hit tweets you see, all of the incredible content, all of like, and you say that Mercedes pretty much just copy whatever F1 Twitter does and then stick a Mercedes logo on it, and then and then he gets paid a pretty hefty bonus for that. So we should pay some of that to us. But quickly, I guess, Amelia, how can people get involved when the time comes around, and what, I guess, how can people like share, amplify, whatever?
So something I actually wanted to work on, but something I wanted to emphasize this year is like, this movement isn't about me and my platform. I'm just the one promoting it.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be a me thing, because like, as much as I wish it wasn't, I think there are people out there that will think, oh, that's associated with me. Like, I want this movement to be about inclusive values. So, like, naming no names, but if you're a team that's racist, or you're a homophobic team, and you haven't... Yes.
Can you say that
I
a
don't
bit
want
louder?
teams to do... No, you're right.
Fucked.
Let's be honest. I don't want teams that aren't inclusive to all women to get involved. This is not a girl boss feminism. This is not any liberal feminism thing. Do not be promoting your women if you do not promote all women on your platform. But I do want this to be about a community-wide thing where you can do your own thing. Like, I've spoken to some organizations and I'm like, post a tweet just with the hashtag Women at Motorsport Month. Put something out, put any content you want out. Like, just have a conversation in Twitter. I'll probably be running stuff on the F1 community anyway, because I'm an admin on that, but have a chat on that, talk to people, put a tweet out, like, just try and focus even if it's just once, about thinking about the change that we have. But, and this is like the big thing for me, make sure, like, I do not want any liberal feminism, any non-inclusive stuff. I do not want liberal feminism stuff. Like, just, I know I keep saying that, but like, I don't want it to be like, oh, look at this woman who also is like racist or whatever, just because she's in Formula One. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm
saying?
that boils my blood. No, honestly, like, she's not even. Have you heard what she said about feminism? She's like, oh no, I don't want feminism to be about bra burning. I want it to be an appreciation of our softness and stuff. And I'm like, no, go away. I don't want that anywhere near us.
You better
like,
open a book.
No, go
Read
away.
something.
Yes, exactly.
That's pretty wild.
But that's Women in Motorsport Month.
Okay, no, thank you for bringing that up, man. I appreciate it. And we'll amplify that, any of that as much as we can. And someone actually asked me the other day how they could like find more friends within F1. And I guess if you're watching this or you're listening to this and you're wondering that, Twitter is a great place to start. Go follow your favorite driver. Follow your favorite podcasts, see who they interact with, see who's under their posts, follow them, and you'll organically grow your own little corner of the internet. And it's changed my life. I think it's changed all of our lives in some way or another, and I can't speak to that enough. And I would say that it is the women on F1 Twitter who make the experience what it is. Incredible, funny, informative, very pretty as well, respectfully. So yeah. Thank you so much for that. Naz, any last words before I ask you that, or anything? When are you doing the space next? When's the next space?
I will talk to
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, let me be honest, Shane, God bless them. I think the problem has kind of been that we're all really busy. Like you said, I've moved into a different phase of my life. Which kind of means that my availability can sometimes be very stressful.
You're the Beyonce of the group.
Now it's coming out.
Okay.
No, because seriously, right? I mean, if you look at my timeline, the only time where it's actually proper happening is like during F1 weekends, and that's because I plan my life, outside of my work life, around F1 weekends. And so, like, sometimes I'm like, they're like, we should do a space, and I'm like, oh, I have to go somewhere, and so I can't. But I mean, I think if we put our minds to it, we can definitely start being more consistent.
I will be there. No worries. Look, I thank you.
Also, whilst I'm here, thank you so much for your support. I always say this, but I think like we only work, and Parc Femmes only work because of the incredible support that we receive. And you have been one of those people that's been really, really important in terms of like supporting us and saying that we're doing a thing, and it's like really, cool. And I think also Amelia, I think I reached out to you, I think it was like a year ago when we did the space. I think what you do is really important in terms of talking about like women in motorsport. So keep up the good work. Big fans of you both.
Oh, I'm big fans of you both. Oh, this is so
same.
Wow.
No, but you were saying a minute ago about finding your space on the internet, and I think this is truly a great corner of F1 Twitter. And this is the corner of F1 Twitter that I think makes a lot of change happen. And it's a positive part.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for coming on. You can see their social media handles in their things below, and make sure you say hello to them. Make sure you, Naz, I don't know what you're going to get, but, don't say anything to Naz, okay? Say anything to Naz, you have a problem with me, okay?
Although, one thing about me is like, if you come for me, I will come for you. So let's just...
She knows where you live. We're tracking IP addresses. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. If you're listening, if you've got this far, thank you so much. Make sure you're giving us a like and a subscribe in the video, giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, rating on Spotify, and if you want some garments, feel free to go to the Quick Stop F1 website. We've got a new garm drop in October, that's going to be first week of October, the Lewis Hamilton t-shirts coming out. So that's going to be good. Everyone's going to enjoy that. We've got a whole range for Christmas coming out as well. So gifts for all the family. So yeah. And whilst I'm here, any other announcements? Oh yeah, I stream all the time on Twitch. Make sure you come on Twitch. Our Twitch link is below. But that is it for today. Thank you to my lovely guests. You are great. And remember, no matter what you do,
keep it on the black stuff.
Are you okay? What are you doing?
I'm sorry.
The fuck is going on here?
We're gonna end this bit out, right? Do it again.
No. I will do it again. You know what? Fine. You know, I'll tee it up for you, and you instead of stealing it from me, you can just say it. Fucking steal. You know when someone takes food off your plate without even asking? Like, I'm fine with you taking it, but like. Ask a brother.
But can I just say, like, I have been waiting so long to say that, because sometimes I remember I was tweeting something about I can't remember where it was, but basically I said, like, in the words of Quick Stop, like, keep it on the black stuff. Yeah. And so like I literally do the thing where I like quote you guys in like my real life.
Oh wow, that's awesome. You must be having some real dumbass conversations. Okay, let me tee it up, okay? And remember, no matter what life throws at you,
keep it on the black stuff.
Wonderful. Take care.